Today, a Pentagon official said that the U.S. is tracking more than 800 of what they refer to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. Now, to be clear, they're not saying that most or even any of them are ETs, but they are working on this and trying to find ways to create a roadmap for how they are analyzed going forward. As of now, the quality of the reports they are looking at is really wide-ranging, from military aircraft sightings to citizen cell phone video. This is one of them, from a P-3 military aircraft, this in the western U.S. See those three dots? Now, to be clear, they actually turned out to be distant aircraft. But here's another example of the kinds of reports that NASA gets almost daily.
This is an example of one that I showed at the hearing recently. This is a spherical orb, metallic, in the Middle East, 2022, by an MQ-9. I will come back to the sensor question that David raised here in a moment. This is a typical example of the thing that we see most of. We see these all over the world, and we see these in making very interesting apparent maneuvers.
He was referring to an MQ-9 drone there. Joining me now, Adam Frank, professor of astrophysics at the University of Rochester. He's also the principal investigator of NASA's first ever grant to look for signatures of advanced life on distant worlds. Good to have you, Professor.
Pleasure to be here.
So first, let's start with the big picture question. When you look at these sightings, do you see anything that is credible evidence that some, not most of them, but perhaps some of them, could be something extraterrestrial?
The answer is no. My job as a scientist is going to be looking for life on other worlds, and there's nothing that even comes close to the standards of evidence that we would need for ourselves to be able to claim that we found evidence for life on another world. So right now, the data is just nowhere near what we need.
Okay, so let's look at, for instance, in that video, that testimony that we just played, as they were showing video from a drone in the Middle East of an orb. This is a kind of thing that we've seen more than once, often picked up by the sensitive instruments, as we're showing here, on aircraft, and they tend to have these common qualities, kind of tic-tac shaped, right? You hear that description. When you see examples like that, do you think it's an anomaly in the sensors, or it could be, I don't know, Chinese, Russian new technology?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things that it could be. Balloons that float around. As we've seen, there's been an amazing number of sightings that come down to being balloons in the air. And so what really, in order to do science with these things, you need to know exactly what the instrument is. You need to know how the instrument was last serviced. You need to know about the software routines in it. The same kinds of things that we're going to need to do when we claim that, if we ever get to the point of claiming that we see life on other worlds, you've got to be able to know exactly and explicitly how the data was collected, what instruments were used, and only then can you go on to actually try and infer anything from the data.
So let me ask you this then, because the Pentagon has dipped its toe, shall we say, into this space a number of times in recent years, and any time they do, it creates some big headlines. People are like, wait a second, they're saying these are UFOs, this could be real stuff. Well, does the Pentagon have an angle in this? Are they trying to tamp down speculation or leave it open?
No, I think what's happened now, when you look at the history of UFO reports in the government, clearly during the Cold War, the military had an agenda, because we were dealing with the Russians and disinformation was great. I think now what's happened is there's been a recognition that, people are seeing these things. There may be defense related issues here. Mm-hmm. There may be just air traffic safety things related here. And so I think now finally, and I'm all for this, a true open scientific investigation of what's happening. And then from there, we'll be in a position to judge whether there's anything to this that is more than terrestrial. I don't think that's going to be the case, but that's what we're after.
Understood. Well, when you find it, please let us know. Professor Adam Frank, good to have you on. I'm sure it's not the last time we talk about it. Professor, thanks so much. Boris.
Today at NASA's first public hearing on UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, what are more popularly known as UFOs, the Pentagon revealed it's now tracking more than 800 cases of mysterious flying objects, 50 to 100 new reports a month. Today's 4-hour televised hearing, which was in the name of transparency, comes several months after NASA launched its own study into the unexplained sightings. Their final report is expected to be released in late July. Joining me now are our own human UAP, senior data reporter Harry Enton. First, so why the name change? Why UAPs now?
Because we want to put the focus on the...
Who's
not
we?
We part of the scientific community.
Oh, you're part of the scientific
I'd
community?
like to think so.
Okay,
Remember, I went
sure.
to weather camp.
Okay. It's true.
We want to put the focus on what we see and not necessarily the objects, right? And more than that, when you think of UFO, you think of these like flying saucers out of like a 1950s movie.
Okay.
We don't want to stigmatize it too much. So changing
it may not be an object itself. It may be a phenomenon.
It could be a phenomenon. It could be something. It could,
like,
could be a shining light that you see going from somewhere.
So what does the data show? How many UAPs are actually unexplained?
Yeah, it turns out that, you mentioned that 800 number, but it turns out only about 2 to 5% of it truly are unexplained. So, most of these we're able to tell, from sensors and stuff, oh, this is something we can actually explain. But, the fact that we have about 20 to 40 that aren't.
Some of those are moving so weirdly.
Yeah.
Those ones.
Yeah, like the zigzag. And
like in ways we can't even contemplate.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
And go,
it blows my mind.
Yeah, this is why we're talking about it, because it blows a lot of people's minds.
So how many people admit to believing in aliens?
Yeah, it turns out that it's more and more Americans are admitting. Look at this change that we've seen.
Yeah.
Up to 66% now. It was less than 50% back about 25 years ago. Younger people are more likely to believe it. And I think the reports, again, we're trying to destigmatize it, and maybe we believe.
Well, I think seeing all these videos of things on like Navy, surveillance cameras are incredible.
Yeah, the press is able to put it out there much more frequently, and so I believe the belief is rising.
What do numbers show about how many people think we'll actually have contact with aliens?
Yeah, in our lifetimes or at any point really, most people believe we probably, it's about split 50-50. 49% say we never will. 7% say we already have. I wonder who those 7% are. Another 39% say eventually we will. I'd like to think I'm part of that 39%. How about you?
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
You know what? That's the beauty of it all. The mystery.
Ooh, oriented. Thank you.
Thank you.